All right. Well, this is Metal Grove Radio podcast, and I'm your host, Ryan Egan. Today I have Jeff Betker, aka Jeff Suffering from 90 Pound Wuss, among other projects. He's joining me from Seattle, Washington. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. How's it going, Jeff?
It's going pretty good. It's little little crazy weather out here. It's been sunny and then it's been raining and then like all day long it keeps switching back and forth.
Yeah, the I have never been to the Pacific Northwest, but I've always wanted to go up there and yeah, see the it's from what I've seen, it's just so beautiful. But yeah, the weather can be a little bit iffy sometimes. Well, I just wanted to tell you, first of all, I really love, all three albums. I never really listened to a lot of them, back when they were out. But, just in the past few weeks, like I've done with a lot of bands, in the past few years, just really listened to all of it and, got into them. I got both of them, or actually
Those are the good ones.
yeah. No, I like the first one too. Um, just for the people watching, this is the second one,
Yep.
and this is the third one. And yeah, lyrically, I think I like the second one. The third one, musically, it's just so cool, with the different parts, slowing down and speeding up, and the way you've developed the vocals. So, did want to ask you, how did you, you know, how did you kind of Oh no, I'm getting ahead of myself. Before I ask about the albums, wanted to go back and see how you got into music in the first place. Who did you listen to as a kid, and what were some of your first experiences seeing live music?
Well, when I was growing up, my dad always liked music, really liked the Beatles, but I kind of gravitated towards pop music on the radio. So like when Michael Jackson came out with Thriller, and I was probably, 10 years old or something. I really liked that. And I really liked some of the new wave stuff. Aha. I remember Take on Me. Liked that. Um, I remember hearing Wham! Wake Me Up Before You Go Go. I Go Go, and I really liked that growing up. Um, that what was it? Always something there to remind me. I don't remember the cover version of it, but from the 80s, I love that song. Was it Naked Eyes? I think it was Naked Eyes. Anyways, so those kind of just what was on the radio and in the 80s, and then around middle school, um somebody played, I think somebody intro the first time I heard like hard rock was like maybe like an AC/DC record. I think Back in Black, and everybody was way into metal then. Like so all the kids that were like the cool kids were like into that and into like Motley Crue, Girls, Girls, Girls. And my neighbor gave me a cassette tape of that. But within a week, somebody else gave me a cassette recording that had Nevermind the Bullocks, Sex Pistols on one side, and the other side had Slayer. I believe it was South of Heaven, but it may have been Rain and Blood. Rain and Blood checks out more for Time Rise because it was sometime around 86 or 88, sometime in
Yeah.
there. So it could have been either one of those records, but I fell in love with the Sex Pistols and had heard nothing like it, and it was my favorite thing in the world. And so I just, from there, I discovered Dead Kennedys, I discovered Minor Threat, and what else was that? Subhumans. I was really into Subhumans. Um, Discharge a bit, GBH a little bit. Um, I didn't. I liked the first Black Flag stuff, but didn't get into their later stuff until I was a little older because it was a little bit too probably heavy. And so I just went instantly within a week from like hearing AC/DC and Motley Crue to like changing completely and being way into punk. And at similar times, I was discovering skateboarding, and so we would like pick up Thrasher magazine and get all the skate comps on the back of it and listen to all those bands. So Dehumanizers and there's a lot of local Seattle bands on there, The Accused and like other stuff like that. So got way into all that. DRI was into those early
Mm.
DRI records. Just pretty much anything that we could get our hands on. Started liking music a lot, and then the next phase was discovering The Cure and Bauhaus kind of at the same time. Somebody gave me a cassette of those, and it was like, which one was it? Bauhaus. It was the last record, Burning from the Inside, and it was The Cure standing on a beach, is what they called the cassette tape, and it had the A sides. It was a long playing cassette, and the B sides on the second side, and yeah, that went from there to Joy Division to Susie and the Banshees, and like pretty much Skinny Puppy then and Ministry and pretty much anything that was goth, industrial, and punk rock was like what I listened to. And then I played in marching band and played drums like in high school and marching band, but played in the concert band in middle school. And so I got into playing music, and then I wanted to play bass, so I started playing bass. And we had this like local teen center underneath of the like Salvation Army that was ran by our friend Jonathan, and he was in kind of like an alternative punk band, but saying, he was like a minister, so he sang about uh Christian stuff, and that was the first time I ever thought like, yeah, I mean, just like all the other punk bands, sing about the things that you're into, and I grew up a Christian and going to church, so we just started playing in bands and we'd sing about whatever we'd sing about, which sometimes was Christian stuff. And then we discovered
Yeah.
sort of some of like early on, me and Marty became friends when he moved to Port Angeles, Washington, which is where I grew up. And he moved there from California. Marty's the drummer of 90 Pound Wuss. And let me see, I was friends with Mickey, my friend Mickey, and Marty walks into art class wearing like a Cure shirt and Doc Martens, and so we befriended him right away, and he sat by us, and then we were pretty much best friends after that, and we'd go to the teen center that was like under the Salvation Army, and then there was another one later. It kind of moved that teen center to a different independent church that was the one I grew up in. It was underneath of that church at some point, and that's kind of where 90 Pound was started. But let me see, I must have been in maybe a freshman in high school, and my mom took me to see Depeche Mode.
Oh, wow.
I saw Depeche Mode in Nitzer Ebb. That was my first big concert, and it was we went to Oregon to see it. And I brought this friend of mine, this girl, and it was great. That was amazing, and I loved that. And then the Scattered Few. I mean, I'd go to some of the local bands would play, like my friends, and then I'd be playing bass in a band or whatever. But then the Scattered Few came up and they played in Port Angeles. My friend Jonathan, who was running that teen center, he knew him from when he lived in LA. So Scattered Few played there, and we really liked Scattered Few because we were all, this was before Nirvana was popular, and
Yeah.
so it was kind of like Nine Inch Nails and Jane's Addiction were like the two like big sort of alternative rock bands. There was like the Chili Peppers sort of up. No, they weren't popular yet. They weren't popular until grunge, pretty much, I don't think. So it was Nine Inch Nails and um, Jane's Addiction were like the two alternative bands. And that year, like it was around, I guess that was 91 or something, and the first Lollapalooza happened. We went to
Oh,
that. And then it was shortly thereafter that Nirvana just changed everything. And we were, I guess, I don't know, maybe it was, I don't remember, but I think I was a sophomore, or junior in high school when that happened. And it was like instantly you went from having to watch your back all the time and defending yourself from people like harassing you for having funny hair and wearing weird clothes to all of a sudden you were like the coolest person in the world, and they all thought that you liked Candlebox and Pearl Jam and Nirvana, and
Yeah.
and Soundgarden, which I did like Nirvana and Soundgarden, but yeah, it was a weird time. So that sort of changed things and but still was into punk rock and all that stuff. So that's kind of in a nutshell, those kind of the early years. I didn't really come to Seattle until later, um, and saw shows regularly. But we used to, when I was like a junior, we'd come to Seattle to go to this dance club that was like played goth and industrial music. And so I don't know, like we were kind of into all that stuff. And then later, about the time we graduated from high school, me and Marty started 90 Pound Wuss. We were in another band during high school that was more of a goth industrial band called Systematic. And Teresa, my partner, she was in that band too, and some other friends. It was fun. Yeah, and then we started 90 Pound Wuss, and then we uh, got, kind of, I got back more into punk because punk was also, I mean, I was still into punk, but mostly the classics. And that's when I started getting into more of what was coming out then. A lot of like crust stuff, like I think Detestation. Um, what was going on? Like the first 90 Pound Wuss show in Seattle was actually like the first Anti-Flag tour that they went on. We played with them and nobody was there. It was at this bar called Lake Union Pub, and it was 90 Pound Wuss and Anti-Flag, and that was like one of the first times we played in Seattle. Yeah, I don't know. There was so much music happening then. Like all local bands, Whorehouse of Representatives was one I really liked back then. A band called Bristle, who Lonnie, the singer, I run into him. He runs a place still in Seattle. Anyway, yeah, I just always liked music, and so I always played music as soon as I could in middle
Yeah.
school and whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. Like growing up in Seattle, I always wondered, like, if you're in another band, but like the whole like grunge thing is happening at the same time. And yeah, I was into all the grunge. Soundgarden. I saw Soundgarden and Tad. And then yeah, just loved all those bands.
I
But
was about 2 hours west of Seattle where I grew up, and my parents were kind of strict for me coming over here. And I didn't see all those bands when I could have or should have probably. I mean,
yeah,
I was going to like I went to the Lollapalooza concert. I went to see Skinny Puppy. Um, but most of it happened after high school when I was driving and more independent. So we
yeah,
saw Susie and the Banshees and Dead Can Dance, and at the time it was mostly that and grunge, and metal was kind of popular too, but metal got way more popular later. So we were mostly into yeah, I don't know, when in my 20s it was when I moved to Seattle in my 20s, like probably around, I think I moved here when I was like 22 maybe from the peninsula, and then I just started instantly like I started volunteering at this place called the Velvet Elvis Arts Theater, and they would do matinee shows on the weekends, and there'd be like a theater production afterwards. And so we did like A Minor Forest and like all the like sort of post grunge stuff like that was, I guess, before emo became some big thing. What it was kind of stuff like that. Sort of post like Sunny Day Real Estate used to practice there. I guess like the local bands at that time that would play there all the time would be like Modest Mouse used to play there, and then I was still playing in 90 Pound Wuss, and 90 Pound Wuss was over here, and we would always hang out like Blood Brothers, Murder City Devils. That was kind of our Seattle crew. Botch, like those kind of bands. They were all like our friends, and Kill Sadie. I guess later all those guys were in Minus the Bear, stuff like that.
yeah.
So late, I got really involved just by, and when we were in on the peninsula, we would put on our own shows too. So I always sort of put on concerts, and then later I ran a club called the Paradox. That was the only all ages club at the time in the city of Seattle proper, because there was this ridiculous teen dance ordinance here that made it impossible for people under 21 to see concerts. So yeah, we ran that out of a church that I was a part of for way too long. Anyway, the yeah, it was interesting. So I've always been a part of music, and then after I had uh my my kids, like there was probably about a decade where I didn't really play much, and I would play at church sometimes, but I didn't really make stuff, and I didn't know I needed it in my life until it was funny because it took. I made a record with my friend Joe called this band we have called Dry Bones, DRYBNZ, and that we worked on that for a long time. I mean, it was like an 8 year process, but we probably like only spent like 2 years on it early on, and then we had to get back into it to release the thing. But it was sort of when I left church was kind of processing all that stuff when we made that record, and then it took forever to put it out because I had so much other things that I was wrestling with in my life, and he was going through stuff, and finally that came out, and I was like, okay, I should make music more, and then 90 Pound Wuss in 2023 got offered to play um, Furnace Fest, and that sort of sprung it. And when that got put together, I just been doing it ever since and realized that's something I need in my life, and I'm glad I'm doing it still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I feel like after I got back into it, not playing music, but just going to shows, and it's like I don't ever want to stop.
Wasn't it
Um,
crazy after COVID how good bands were all of a sudden? Like
yeah,
every show you'd go to was like amazing, just like everybody giving it their 100%.
yes, yep, yeah. I went to see Zayo, and I was like,
Oh,
oh my gosh! And I got to meet him, for the first time after all these years, and that was cool to meet Dan and Scott. But
oh yeah, they're great. I love Zayo.
yeah,
They're those guys are friends too. I mean, we used to. It was funny because I feel like that second 90 Pound Wuss record and Where Blood and Fire, they both kind of came out at the same time. And it's funny because one's metal and one's punk, but we use the same sort of song structures and chord structures a lot of times. Like there's
yeah,
these octave chords and these like it's pretty interesting. Like listening to them back to back, you're like, it's weird that we were across the country and had some similar influence and yet totally different influences.
yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, that album, Blood and Fire, was like life-changing for me. It was like,
Oh yeah, that record's phenomenal. I mean,
yeah,
you know what? Like they're all their records are really good, but that one was sort of something special that nobody was doing, and then everybody started doing it, and no, they don't really get credit for that whole like we're gonna sing along in the background while somebody's screaming. They don't really get as much credit as I think they deserve for sort
yeah,
of starting that thing, even though, some bands were kind of doing it, but not really. Zayo really brought that.
yeah,
It's so good. Yeah, that record's
definitely.
great.
Yeah, it is. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I've got the CD up there.
Yeah, and you
Um,
got the Grateful Dead shirt. That's awesome. The Zayo Grateful Dead shirt.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
I'm
such a good shirt.
I'm kind of a deadhead too, so when I saw that, yeah, actually they signed the back of it
Oh,
too.
nice.
And so but I when I wear it, deadheads are always like, "Oh, that's cool." I'm like, "Yeah." They don't realize it's not a dead shirt. It says smash your face instead of steal your face. So
Oh, yeah, yeah. Have you seen the Grateful Dead Black Flag like mashups?
no, I haven't
Oh, they're
seen
pretty
that.
good. There's one that says you can enjoy the wonders of Black Flag.
Yeah.
And then there's like it's pretty good. Um yeah, I like yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, John Spalding, who was in 90 Pound Wuss on part of that second record and then all of the last album that we put out on Shorthand Operation. The last album to date, not we're working on new stuff, but he was really into the Grateful Dead and I
Okay.
am not. So we would went on tour and he'd drive and he would listen to the Grateful Dead. I would
Yeah.
be driven up the wall batty by the guitar
Yeah.
weirdness. Yeah.
All over the place. Yeah. Yeah, I have a few of their albums on vinyl. But let's see. Let me get back to the questions. So yeah, I mean, kind of along with what you were saying, how did you kind of evolve, your sound from the first to the second to the third? What influenced those changes
Oh
from
yeah.
album to album?
Well, been a lot of influences in this band. So like I said, we were always like, at least me and Marty always kind of listened to goth and industrial and more experimental music. And so, what happened, how 90 Pound Wuss happened was the original bass player, his name's Matt. Um, he was, he, he was hanging out and became a Christian at that place that I was talking about that was under the church. Um, and me and Marty and John Hammelberger, who was the original guitar player, John also helped run that spot. He's a few years older than us, and he was hanging out with me and Marty and Matt. We were sort of like the me and Marty specifically, I guess, were sort of, from what I gather and have heard over the years, the story goes that we were uh that the church people were worried about us, and we were sort of the at-risk youth that were in the church that they wanted to make sure were safe or saved or whatever they thought. So,
Yeah.
um, John and Jonathan, there's two Johns that worked at that place, both friends. We would hang out a lot. Anyway, Matt became a Christian. They started playing music, but me and Marty and John Hammelberger were, I was playing bass, and we were all kind of trying to make music in a different band. And I just said, why don't I just play with you guys since you guys are playing and I'll just sing. And that's how 90 Pound Wuss started. We started playing in the basement of that church. And since Matt was just a new believer at the time, we would, um, it's weird thinking about those things because I'm not so wrapped up into Christian culture anymore. So I don't use this language as often, but they, so they started, yeah, so we'd have a Bible study and then we'd play music, and basically that's how all those lyrics would come about. So that's why the first record is so much more like uh Jesus-y sounding, or we'd be chatting and making jokes about some stuff. And so we came up with songs like Olympia and like some other things. So more or less that first record, that's where it was coming from. And then when we got signed, things started to change and Matt quit. And then we got Giles, who was played in the Cooties with Mike Herrera and Dale Yob. Um, and who else was in that band? Yuri was in that band, I think. Yeah, Yuri played drums in the Cooties, didn't he? Yeah, Yuri, Dale, Mike, and Giles all played in the Cooties. So Giles started playing with 90 Pound Wuss. And then Giles just disappeared one day. And so Dale started playing with 90 Pound Wuss. And then we
Yep.
were working on our second record, and Dale used to be more into hardcore, and I had moved to Seattle by then, and I was getting more into like San Diego hardcore stuff, like stuff that was on uh what is that, why can't I remember the label? Gravity Records. Stuff on Gravity Records like Heroin and Antioch Arrow and Mohinder and things like the really, really fast, spastic hardcore stuff that was kind of like uh I mean they call it scrams now. I guess the kids like that's what the style of music is called now, but then everybody just called it Spock rock or like spazzy hardcore or whatever. Like nobody had really a name for it, but everybody, it was like the Locust was in that genre too, except for they were more metal and grindcore, but they had that same kind of spastic frenetic thing. So I was getting really into that kind of music. And John Hammelberger quit after we had about half the second record written, and John's just like, I can't do this anymore. So we got John Spalding to write the rest of the songs, but we already had studio time booked. So when we went in the studio, we had two different guitar players who played half the record, and they kind of each switched. So um, part of it, me moving to Seattle and volunteering at the Velvet Elvis and seeing all those bands that I was getting into play a bunch, all those screamo, crazy scrams music. I was getting into it, and I was writing some of the songs on that second record. Um, and so was Dale, and then Spalding would bring some ideas to the table too by then, and so that record's a little more eclectic. It still had some remnants of the first record, and then it was moving in a new direction. But then we switched guitar players, and so an even newer direction. And by then the bass player was different. Um, And so what ended up that changed that, and then I started getting way into my goth side again, and like I got way back into Joy Division and Bauhaus and was listening to that a lot, and the Birthday Party, which was Nick Cave's punk band, was listening to those constantly, and Swans, like some of Swan's stuff. By the time we made that third record, I had rediscovered some of my like goth roots and was listening to tons of that stuff. While we were involved more in the hardcore scene in Seattle, but we were kind of more a punk band. So we had these things going on that were never fit in quite right. And then being on Tooth and Nail and like being labeled as a Christian band also made another dynamic that didn't really fit in at that time, because this was before like Under Oath and Emery and those bands like were popular, and so it felt still like you kind of had to. It was always a conversation. Like when we played a show with that band Avail one time, and they were like, I was just talking to. They had like a go-go dancer in that band. His name I think was Bobo, and he like would just get the crowd going. Anyways, they were pretty good, but he just asked me a million questions about my faith in punk rock and the intersection of it, and it was constantly like that. So we were
Yeah,
friends with all these people in hardcore and punk, and um, we'd play shows up here with Behead the Prophet, No Lord Shall Live, Murder City Devils, um, Botch, Blood Brothers, and bands kind of like that. All the time. And then we'd go on tour and we'd play with like Goaty Hook and Slick Shoes and more of that. So we never really fit in anywhere.
yeah,
Um, the best times were when we'd get to play with like Zayo was always great. Every time we'd play with Zayo was great.
yeah,
So by the time the last record came out, we just didn't feel at home at all having any connotations with Christian rock, and I didn't like what I was seeing when we'd play those like church shows and other things. There was a lot of people like using our faith sort of, it's felt like a marketing ploy. It felt like when Jesus kicked over the tables in the New Testament of people trying to sell animals for sacrifices in front of the temple. It felt a
yeah,
lot like that to me, and I was kind of fed up, and we all were. And John wanted nothing, Spalding wanted nothing to do with Tooth and Nail. So in the end, we just kind of started Raft the Dead Monkeys. And it was actually me and Doug and Matt Johnson. And then John just showed up at practice one day, and nobody ever asked him to leave or why he showed up. He just started playing with us. So it was pretty interesting. And I was just like, um, yeah, I mean, we all lived together, so it made sense. It was probably me that brought him anyways. I don't remember, but we just stopped doing 90 Pound Wuss because I didn't think we could find another label. And so we did Rafted and Monkeys, and then we partway through Raft, I started suffering in the Hideous Thieves, and then I just kept doing that, and then at some point it was too much for me to have kids and try to make money and play in bands, and I was volunteering a lot at my church, and so I stepped down from that, and those guys went on to do other music that were, I mean, Suffering in the Hideous Thieves was always sort of my singer-songwriter band until the last record. Everybody who was in it by then, we had kind of formulated a full band, and Joel um, Couplin is his name, had brought a lot of the songs from that, and then everybody was kind of contributing more. There was always songs that other people wrote on the other Hideous Thieves stuff that we did, but mostly me and mostly my songs, and sort of putting people together. So there was probably over time there was probably like 20 or 30 people in and out of that band at various points. A lot of them were just musicians in other bands.
yeah.
So and then yeah, I guess yeah, it wasn't until 90 Pound West got back together after I stopped that I realized I needed to be continue to make music. And now it's funny because everybody's quit 90 Pound Wuss again too. So
I was gonna ask about that too.
well, it kind of like, so when we got back together, like Spalding had passed away, and we really wanted to honor Spalding's songs, the ones that we wrote on shorthand. So we got a second guitar player whose name is Colin, and Colin was in it since the beginning when we were rehearsing for Furnace Fest. Basically, after like a few rehearsals without him, we decided to add a second guitar player. So, and we went with Hammelberger, joined back up from the original first record and half of Where Meager Die, and then we had our bass player hit not the original Matt. There was three Matts in 90 Pound Wuss that played bass at various times, and Matt Johnson played bass and drums at the last tour we did. So Matt Bailey, he was in he moved up from California and he's Marty's brother-in-law now, but he was in a band called Outer Circle and played bass in Outer Circle that Mark Solomon sang in, and it was like
Oh,
it's like a one-off Tooth and Nail release. So Matt Bailey was living here and he was in 90 Pound Wuss for a little bit before we recorded um, shorthand operation, and he had a hand in some of those, like at least one or two songs, maybe helping write a little bit. But he played in that band and did a tour with us, and then John didn't really like working with him, Spalding, so he wasn't in the band anymore, and we got a different bass player, and then named Brian Trimble. And the last tour was John Spalding, me, Brian Trimble, and Marty had quit after he recorded shorthand, so Matt Johnson played drums on tour. So the last incarnation of 90 Pound was the first time around. I was the only original member. Anyways, when we got back together for Furnace Fest, it was people that had all been in 90 Pound Wuss before and Colin. And then after Furnace Fest, Colin and I really wanted to keep going. Marty wanted to keep going. John wanted to but couldn't. Matt quit. And then we got this bass player, Jason, who's still in the band now. And then uh, Hammelberger was in a while. He couldn't do it anymore. He's just busy on the peninsula. And most of these, we were scattered all over Washington. Anyway,
it's not
so
easy to travel, right?
no, it's a
With
we
all the
like
water.
yeah, we like live a couple hours away from each other. So we got this our friend Mike, who was around back in the day, Mike Jeetsy, he was in a band that 90 Pound West used to play with when we first started, like before we were even signed to Tooth and Nail, called Wow Nito Frank. And he was in the band for about a year, and then he had to bow out because he's got some other stuff. He's in a an industrial band. Oh, what are they called? Man, I can't remember their name. I'll have to send it to you, but they're pretty good. They're like the heavier industrial side, like Ministry, kind of. So they're really like
Love ministry.
technical metal. I think he plays seven-string guitar in it. Anyways, that's more like his forte. So
Yeah.
he played with 90 Pound Wuss for a year in 2025. So we got together in 2023. We had 2024 off, but I was antsy, so I wrote all these songs and these demos. And then in 2025, we started learning those demos, got Mike, played a few shows, and then Mike quit first, and now our other guitar player, her name's Samantha Christine, and she's great. So she's
Oh
been
yeah.
playing with us for probably 2 months, 3 months now, and
Okay.
she's great. And then Marty had to quit. He had yeah. So he left, and we haven't announced our new drummer yet, but we have a new drummer, and we're rehearsing this weekend. The tryouts were fun. We had two really great people try out, and it was a hard decision. But when are you going to release this? Do you know? Next
When do
week
you,
or the week after?
I don't know. It depends. When do you want me to release it?
You could release it next week, anytime, if I tell you who our drummer is.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll tell you, we got a guy named Mike Motor Green who played in Trial and played
Okay.
in a band called Himsa that people probably know. That was
Oh
on.
yeah.
He was in Himsa, and so he's playing drums for us now. Mike Green is. He's
Okay.
great, and we're really excited to have him. Yeah. So now we recorded with Marty, like 6 songs, and So we're basically learning those, learning some back catalog, and we're working on new stuff. So our recording, we're finished. Now we're trying to I just tracked vocals on a couple tracks. So we're doing this like we're not going in a studio. We're doing it all ourselves. So it's like a learning process as well as a time commitment, and all of us work 40 plus hours a week, oftentimes 50 or 60. So it's a little tricky. Um, and
Yeah.
I play bass in another band. That band practices every week, so we're called Absenter, and
Oh yeah.
it's with Matt Johnson and Ed Kerrigan from Blunderhead and Don't Know, and then our friend William Quinby, who was in Harkonnen, and he was an original member of These Arms Are Snakes before they put anything out. He's been in a few other bands, and then our friend Alicia sings, and she was in a band with Matt called Cussing and some other bands. But that band is fun. It's a little bit more like Drive Like Jehu and meets, I guess I'd call it like Drive Like Jehu meets Black Flag and maybe like Gouge Away a little bit. So I like that band a lot. So that band practices every week, and 90 Pound Wuss practices about once a month for a really long day
Okay.
and then
What about
records.
the new stuff for 90 Pound West? How's it sound compared to the other older stuff?
It is a mix of all of our stuff and new things. There's a couple tracks that we'll be doing that are more like Suffering in the Hideous Thieves kind of style in some ways. And then there's more that are a little bit more like the first record, more like Minor Threat and Gorilla Biscuits influenced. And then there's some tracks that are I mean it's pretty punk, but it's also got like a lot of other stuff going on. So it depends what song, but most of the songs that we're playing are they have the element of like a hooky pop catchiness to them, but then they're usually turn a corner and get a little darker. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a blend of all of our sounds, and I really like it. It's been really fun um,
Cool.
redoing this and writing new songs. So I'm excited to release those when we can. And we have a new version of Something Must Break called MAGA Must Break, and it's a little we might get in trouble from some people. That will be coming out as a single as well.
Good, do it.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else? You've answered a lot of my
Yeah, I
questions
just rant, man.
I had already. Yeah, no, that's good because I was gonna ask like, what you're gonna do about Marty and yeah, wow, that's thank you.
Yeah,
So
you're the first person to hear it about a Mike being our drummer. So,
I know, Mike
yeah,
Green, you heard it here first
yeah.
on
Listen to the first
RODM.
Himsa record, and
Okay,
that's him playing the first Himsa record and some of the old trial stuff. He's great. Like he's got the good like straight edge hardcore Gorilla Biscuits type thing down, as well
nice.
as he's really good at technical like metal stuff. So it's a little Marty and Matt Johnson are like two of my favorite drummers in the way that they kind of like flow between like the beat, but always land on one. But they do a lot of really cool stuff that's almost like a little looser. And Mike's a
Uh,
little bit more technical, so it's going to bring a different element to the band that I think is something that Colin, our one of our guitar players, is. I think that his writing style is going to get really accentuated in this next chapter of 90 Pound Wuss. And then Sam and Jason both sing harmonies really good to my vocals, and it's pretty crazy having like three-part harmonies in 90 Pound Wuss. It sounds pretty awesome.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to hear it. I can't wait. Let me ask you a couple last things. It sounds like you're really pretty busy with music, but do you have any other like interest, hobbies? Are you a sports fan? And also, are you reading any books right now?
Oh, yeah. I I read all the time, and I mostly read fiction, and it's usually like uh fantasy fiction, and yeah, I mean one of my favorite books is The Wheel of Time. I really like The Wheel of Time. I really like obviously the Lord of the Rings. You know, I generally don't even pay attention half the time. I'm just like I'll blow down like I'll find some thing on Kindle Unlimited or like I use the Libby app from the library and I'll find like some series
Oh yeah.
and you like I'm such a nerd. I'm pretty into like I love fantasy because it like escapes from everything going on. I
Yeah.
used to love reading history and theology and philosophy, but now I just nerd out on like vampire and werewolf and fairy stuff. Like it's kind of dumb, but I'm pretty into like the more fantastical worlds that are being built and good versus evil kind of battles and stuff like that. I'm
Yeah.
but I do read a lot. I mostly I've been listening to more like political books on like when I listen to audiobooks. Um Jeez, I feel like I have to pull some stuff up. But I love reading and I love listening to
Yeah.
books. Pretty much my main hobby though is music.
Yeah.
That's all I really have time for. Music. My kids are two of my kids are adults. One's a teenager, and so I'm not as in. They're more independent than they once were. So you kind of
Yeah.
start finding things to do. So yeah, music's really my only hobby. I do like project management for a flooring company. I do sales and estimating and project management, and that keeps me really busy because it's like pretty much uh I'm responsible for a lot. We do lots of bathroom and kitchen remodels.
Yeah.
So, I make sure that things run smooth, but I'm pretty busy. Um, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I love reading. I wish I could read more. Um, I do love paddleboarding. I guess that's the one thing that I do.
Oh, okay.
And this time of year, I haven't gone out yet this year, but I need to because it's getting warm. So I
Yeah.
really like that. Let me see. What have I
Oh,
been reading? Let me tell you here. I've been reading Money Lies in God. Um, Listening to that, The Longest Con, Culture Warlords.
wow, you read a lot.
Well, I listen to audiobooks.
Audiobooks, yeah. That's cool. I should do that. I'm
Cozy
more
Fanny
into
Tootie, who was in Chris and Cozy and Throbbing Gristle. I have it on my list to read her book that she wrote called Art, Sex, Music. Um, I was reading I was reading the Subhumans like story, and it's interesting because it's more of a conversation between the members of Subhumans and the person who's sort of interviewing him. That's kind of how the book is. So I've
yeah.
been going back and forth between that and then like the fantasy book I'm reading right now. It's the second book in a it's called Brimstone and it's by someone named Callie Hart and I like it.
Okay.
I was reading this one called Dungeon Crawler Carl. And there's a whole series. The second one, I'm on the second book called Carl's Doomsday Scenario. Yeah,
Nice.
like I said, I just love fantasy. It's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, that's why I like to ask different questions because you never know, who's listening that, hey, I like read those books too, and yeah, I've interviewed quite not that many people lately, but one dude, he's like into everything you would never expect, so it's really cool to learn what you guys, what you do and what you read and to connect with people, it's that's what Meadow Grove's all about. I have one last thing. I wanted to read a lyric from your song because I think it's really kind of relevant to our culture today. It is from Backwards Thinking from Where Meager Die. And it says, "You'll always think I need to do things your way. There's no room for equality. No one can be different with your realm of thought. You preach love, but bigotry is the only seed that you sow. You're so far from the truth with your backwards thinking. You're concerned with condemnation. You've forgotten how to love." And that's what I think a lot of people today is just they've forgotten how to love, like it's they love with conditions. And I was at the Converge show last night, and I think his name is Jacob. He said that like we're here for love, but we're here for love unconditionally. So I think that's really, interesting that a lot of lyrics can come back and really fit today. They're timeless. So I really appreciated that lyric. It says you've forgotten how to love, and I think that's what people need to do today. So
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad you like that. I feel like 90 Pound Wuss is it's timely that we're back together because we used to sing about how hypocritical and off the church was,
Yeah.
and mostly around health, wealth, and prosperity theology. And now it's really simple. Like you can literally just sing about Christian nationalism forever because it's terrible and it's a terrible
Yeah.
heresy and it's an awful way of thinking and it dehumanizes people and it's idolatrous and ignores the teachings of Jesus. And so I
Yeah.
feel very akin to like a John the Baptist type figure that eats locusts and honey and hangs out in the wilderness and yells at people and
Yeah.
tells them to repent. So that's I feel my calling in life, and it's cool how it sort of everything arranged to be doing 90 Pound Wuss again and have so much like ranting against this administration, the
Yeah.
world that we live in that hates people for being people and dehumanizes them. Um, I think it is the closest thing in my life that I'd have or consider a possibly calling from God. Um, I don't like to say those things too strongly, depending on who I'm talking to. Sometimes I do
It's a
because I like
purpose.
to use their language.
Yeah.
Um, and that's all they get is yeah. I mean, are you familiar with the paradox of tolerance? The
I don't think,
idea. So the idea is if you tolerate intolerance, then you're going to live in an intolerant society because intolerant people are not tolerant, so they'll just take over. And that's what we've done for too long. So now there needs to be a stopping spot. And I think we should love people, but I think we need boundaries so that we need boundaries from these racists, these Christian jihadists that are trying to take over and ruin people's lives by making sure that they're subjugated to their power and rule, which is the opposite of Jesus. Jesus laid down
yeah.
his life to serve and to love, and it wasn't about power. And so um, I I am very adamantly opposed, and I would call it blasphemy. I think that Christian nationalism is 100% blasphemous. It is using the name of Jesus to dehumanize and degrade what God made, and which is people. And
Yeah.
I think it's disgusting and sick, and it's the most horrid, um, blasphemous thing that I've ever seen in my life. Like, I don't care about trans people like in that way. I care about trans. Sorry, I don't care if somebody is a trans person. That's for them to deal with. They're a person. They're a human being,
Yeah.
and they get to deal with their uh, body dysmorphia in the way that they should be dealing with it. And the prescription, the medical prescription right now, is to be accepting of their body dysmorphia and to move forward with what you need to do. So these things that dehumanize people by trying to make registries for those people, like it's so sick. It's like fascist Germany. It's
Yeah.
disgusting, and we I believe that this administration is fascist and evil, and they're using the name of God to worship idols, and I don't like it. And so
Yeah.
I'm glad that I get to do 90 Pound Wuss and yell about it.
Yeah, you need that outlet. You definitely do. And yeah, I mean, I agree with you. it's not the teaching of Jesus. That's why I brought up your song Backwards Thinking, because it's not, Jesus went into the temple and said, You guys are having you got it all backwards. This is not how it's supposed to be." And yeah, I think we're just not what he said, love one another. And I don't think we're doing that. So, I don't know if it's gotten worse, over the years, or if it's just different, or, but I mean, that's why we talked a little bit before. That's why I started Metal Grove, just to, support bands and support art, and, just love, people as they are, and be their friend, just have a relationship with them. I know a lot of bands, a lot of local bands that, are all across the spectrum, of, beliefs, and I love all of them, and they love me, and that's, why I love doing what I'm doing. So I appreciate you, and I thank you for doing this, and can't wait to talk again sometime. And you know, hopefully we can get you down here for a show. If
Oh yeah,
yeah,
we'd
been
love it.
I talked to one of my friends at the Nile last night, so just got the ball rolling and let him know. He's like, "Yeah, we'll see what we can do," So
Oh yeah, if there's interest in if we could play with some heavy hitter local bands or something and borrow their gear, we could come down. We don't even yeah, I mean, we did a couple trips this last year. Um and they're for us it's like hanging out on the weekend with your friends. We don't really make money, so we're not like that's not what we're
yeah,
why we're doing it. But we
yeah,
don't want to lose a bunch either. We want to make sure that we're at least playing to 100 people or something.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Cool.
Well, we'll see what we can do, man. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, have a great thanks for reaching out to me. I appreciate it.
Oh
Have
yeah,
a great night.
you too.
Bye.
Bye bye.